Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. I don't know why I did that. Coming to you, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is John Mark Tolley, and joining me, as always, are my two wonderful hosts.
Garrett K. Jones, who's gone full Margaritaville.
I can see that.
And Brian Z. Krosik, who's gone full gray t-shirt.
I've gone on the Dadalorian.
Oh, I like that. That's good. I've seen that advertised. I should get one.
Yeah, my wife got this for me for a Father's Day gift.
Can you customize the face? It looks like the sort of situation where you could make it look more like you.
I think so. I think you can. Yeah.
I don't know. It would make as much sense with that beard on account of I haven't shaved in weeks.
Really? Don't worry. You'll hit puberty someday, Brian.
The Navy broke me, man. I can't go 2 days without shaving. And furthermore, my wife backs it up. I don't get kisses after 3 days. You're too prickly. All right.
See, I'm the opposite. My wife, if I shave, I sometimes will be banished to the other room if I shave. She doesn't like it when I shave. She likes the beard.
Well, I don't have
it's good to be back. I'm sorry I missed you guys last week. We had my wife's birthday was last week, and we like to go to the beach every week for her birthday. And this week this year we happened to meet a huge tropical storm at the beach. So we had quite a rainy day. We're on the coast of North Carolina for the arrival of Tropical Storm Debbie. So we had 4 days of just
veered off back into the Atlantic.
Yeah. I mean, Friday was a beautiful day. Saturday was a beautiful day, but Monday through Thursday was just constant rain, which I don't mind. Like, I'll go swimming in the rain. What am I going to do? Get wet? Sounds good to me. But yeah, it was a great time. Not so much with the kites, though.
Yeah. I this last weekend I was participating in a writing competition, a short story based on the East Coast, and it was a 3,000 word story. This was the most I've written in a single go. Original content that wasn't either being transposed from something I wrote months ago or starting and stopping in just one full complete story, and it was really good to get back on that horse.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Every time I hear about a minimum word count, I'm always reminded of Homer Simpson's term paper that the last 2 pages are just stupid Flanders repeated 14 times.
Garrett, why don't you tell the people out there what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, today we are going to be talking, since our second week of the month is always going to be discussing characters. We are talking about last month we talked about Luke Skywalker. This month we're talking about Owen and Beru Lars, his aunt and uncle,
the Dursleys of Tatooine.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because I was thinking about this, like how we're going to make a whole episode talking about these two people that in the original series they're on for
it's less than 2 minutes of screen time.
Yeah, and then you never hear about them again in the original series. Like Luke never brings them up.
They feature quite nicely in any of the movies. Owen in particular.
Yeah. But yeah, they're one of the, like, we see them before we see Owen before we see Luke.
Yeah.
Like Owen, when you get to the homestead, Owen is the first one we see because he's already out there looking at the droids. And then Luke comes in.
Yeah.
You have to admire Owen's willingness to take this kid.
So, I mean,
because he's got the fact that Vader never checked there for him is just pure oversight on Vader. I mean, he's not very bright. It's just pure oversight. But it's the unmitigated gall of hiding Vader's son with Vader's only relative on Vader's home planet with Vader's last name. I mean, Owen had to imagine it might come up. And I think that taking Luke in, Owen had to know it was a death sentence. How long it took was really just a matter of time. Sooner or later, this decision was going to cost him his life. But he still raised that child. I mean, we don't see him be super nice to Luke, but he wasn't cruel. He taught him a trade. He wanted him to stay on.
I was thinking about this, and I was trying to think, who Owen reminded me of, and I don't know if you're familiar with the show, that '70s show.
Yeah,
but he's Space Red.
He's Red Foreman. Yes,
he's Red Foreman in space.
I'll put my foot up your exhaust port.
He is every late 1970s, early 1980s sitcom dad, like All in the Family, Archie Bunker, that type of trope, like that kind of grumpy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. There was a great episode of that '70s show when Eric was going to see Star Wars.
Yeah,
you recall that one? His car gets stuck on the side of the road, and a vision of his dad appears to him. Use the kitty litter, Eric.
Yeah.
It's funny because we're talking about characters Beru features very little throughout the majority of Star Wars canon. I mean, the first instance we get of her is in A New Hope, where she's an older woman. She's been raising Luke for the last 19 years, and then aside from that, the only other interaction we get from her is when she's briefly introduced in Attack of the Clones, and then when we are reintroduced to her at the very end of Revenge of the Sith, but she doesn't say much in Revenge of the Sith. I mean,
she just sits there with her ponytails quietly.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you look at, the casting was pretty good. I think Joel Edgerton does a good job of playing Lars through his younger and his early adult life. He captures the gravitas that the original actor. I'm trying to pull up the actor's name here. Doesn't even give his name. That's sad. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Portrayal. Phil Brown. Phil Brown was the actor who played Lars originally, and then you can see that Joel Edgerton is trying to learn and trying to imitate that just enough to where he's able to make the character his own, but at the same time, respect what came before. Whereas with the actress that played Beru, and I'm pulling that up now.
I'm sorry, I just have to bring up that Abraham Ben Ruby voiced Uncle Owen on Robot Chicken, who you might know as Kubiak from Parker Lewis Camp.
What? Who now? Did we have a freeze up? Uh-oh.
I think
Brian.
we did. Brian's now the black circle of death.
Man, I hope a Death Star didn't blow up his home planet.
All right.
Anyway, so the original actress Sheila Fraser played Beru, and then Bonnie Peace, who played her in the prequels, they look similarly enough that you could see how the younger version would age into the Sheila Fraser version from A New Hope, but we don't get a whole lot with Beru. Other than she acts as kind of a voice of reason for Lars or for Owen, when he gets grumpy with Luke.
Yeah. You definitely get a sense of, with Owen, of, as someone who grew up in the Midwest and grew up in kind of, farming communities, that type of hardworking, gruff. Oh, there's Brian.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Difficulties there. As I was saying, Abraham Ben Ruby voiced Owen on Robot Chicken, and he played Kubiak on Parker Lewis Can't Lose, which is just a funny kind of crossover to me. But pardon my absence.
No worries.
No, it's fine. We were just talking about. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
Oh, I was just talking about how, as someone who grew up in the Midwest in farming communities, that the kind of gruff, hardworking,
that was every one of your friends' dads.
Yeah, that was Owen. Yeah, Owen was was a lot of my friends' dads. Like that was, I understood. Like I got them. Like
that's great.
Oh yeah, I get that.
I love connecting to a minor character like that. Garrett, do you have anybody like that who crops up in Star Wars? You're like, I know that guy.
Yeah, I would say probably the most. My dad would probably be that guy, because I mean, my grandfather especially. My grandfather was a Midwest farmer from Oklahoma. So he had a lot of that same personality, that gruff, no nonsense personality. And as my dad's gotten older, he tends to emulate that a lot, whether he means to or not.
For me, it's the recruiter in Solo. The guy surrounded by Imperial propaganda, being deafened by the Imperial March all day long, who falsifies documents to make his job easier. I felt seen.
That man is he's good at what he does.
So yes. I was thinking about this earlier today. It's interesting to me. We find out that Luke had wanted to go to the Academy the previous year from when we beat him, but Owen made him stay an extra season to help him. Imagine if Owen had not done that. Luke would have gone to the Academy, and he would have been awesome too. I mean, he's a great pilot. He would have been. By the time Episode 4 started, Luke probably would have been a TIE pilot already.
I want to see that. What if?
I do. Yeah.
Actually, now that you think about it, well, because this is what would happen: is he would go in, they would see he's a great pilot, and they notice that he has certain abilities, certain things, and he would get recruited to join, to be an Inquisitor.
See, here's the thing though. Here's my fun little thing. When you're looking at what ifs and you're looking at those hypotheticals, you have to focus on the consequences of what happens with those character arcs. So say Owen does not hold Luke back. He goes off, like Brian says, to the Imperial Academy. He becomes a pilot. He's probably one of the best that they've ever seen in.
The only one that survived 2 missions.
Yeah, he's probably the best that they've seen in let's say 20 years.
Ever, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the last pilot to be that good is the guy walking around with scuba gear in a black cloak,
whose name is also Skywalker. I feel like that would come up.
The moment his name starts ringing,
now, I wonder if
it's going to trigger.
That's what I wonder. I wonder if Owen didn't let him go to the Academy, if he would say, use our last name.
Yeah, probably so.
Don't use Skywalker. And he would say, don't ask questions.
I mean,
if
Vader's
you go
got
in,
a Google
you're
alert.
Luke Lars.
Yeah. John Mark, I've been reading the Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire, which is funny. My wife loves reading historical fiction. I like reading fictional history. So she's reading about stories set in ancient times, and I'm reading about stories set in made-up times. But the Inquisitor Squad, and this is a canon work now, it's news to me, but the Inquisitor Squad, by the time of Episode 4, had been disbanded and all of its members executed for being Force users.
Oh.
They talk about how, like, once the Inquisitorius stopped finding Jedi, they had completed their purpose. And now we're supposed to be, like, the Imperial propaganda is that the Jedi were lying about the Force all along. And so now that we've got Imperial troops who have the Force, they're inconvenient to the party line, and so they were all killed.
It would make sense that would happen.
Yeah, it's working for Palpatine is just never a winning prospect.
Of course not. It's always going to be. It's always going to be short-lived.
But I would have loved to see that. I'm sure you guys have read the Star Wars Infinities comics where like Luke is killed, Luke dies on Hoth, and so Leia trains under Vader. What are the other ones? Although the Vader in the white armor is weird, though. Do you remember that scene?
Weird. Yeah,
where do you get the paint? That's what I don't get. It's like just now that I'm good. Just
I did like the New Hope. I did like the New Hope one where the attack's not successful on the Death Star.
Right.
And so they capture Leia. Just the scene of Yoda turning the Death Star and basically throwing it at Coruscant.
Oh,
now, the more you think about that, it's more like okay, you're just killing potentially billions of innocent.
Absolutely, it's the size of a moon. The people on the station
I don't know how many people live on Coruscant, but it's got to be in the billions. Yeah, women like at least on the station you can justify it like, well, a lot of them are military personnel or working for military personnel. They know the danger. You're on a military installation; it could be attacked. But with basically crashing into Coruscant, you have women, children, old men.
Plus, Kevin Smith makes a good point. At that stage of the Death Star's construction, there were a lot of civilian contractors on board. I've been on board battleships that were being constructed, and 6 months before they launched, there's still 3/4 of people on board are civilians running wires.
Well, here's something to consider. I'm looking up Wikipedia right now. Let me present it to you guys because you guys will get a kick out of this. Wow. Okay, I'm focusing right here where it says crew. Total crew ranges anywhere between 1.18 and 1.2 million personnel. Okay, that's just personnel. Okay, and that's mission dependent. Then you've got the Imperial Navy and the Army garrisons, which total roughly 342,953. And then you have almost 26,000 stormtroopers. That's not counting civilians living on the station, like passengers, which is a complement of 750,000 people. And that's not counting anybody who is temporarily visiting the station. Mm-hmm. So at any given time, there is over 1 million people on this planetoid space station, and Luke Skywalker just blew them up en masse. Are we sure he's not the villain?
I mean,
well, and I love that kind of hypothetical. Like in The Last Jedi, Poe Dameron kills more Resistance agents than Kylo Ren does. Between the bombing run and the fact that he let slip what Holdo's plan is, like, okay, whether you like Holdo's plan or not, DJ would never have known about the plan if Poe hadn't yelled it over an unsecured line. And like you see DJ hear it, like, oh, that's why he's able to sell that information to the First Order. So you never know who the villain is. But
I want to see a shirt. I want to see it now that you mentioned that. I want to see a shirt. You've seen the we were talking about X-Men off camera. The Magneto was right shirts.
Yeah,
I want to see the Holdo was right.
That's a funny one. I was in school when for episode 200 when Magneto was put on trial before the World Court. Yeah, and I went to my school 2 hours early, and I put a free Magneto index card in every locker, thinking it would be a big deal. It was not. No, nobody said a word. Like, first off, nobody was reading the X-Men in 1989. I was the only one. But I was like, free Magneto. I thought it would be a big thing. It was not. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what's interesting is that idea of I don't know. I think I would take it off topic. Anyway, so Owen and Beru.
You mean we haven't already done that? Oh yeah.
I'm trying to bring us back, man. I'm trying to bring us back. So, I mean, I'm really kind of curious as to who gave the execution order for them.
I mean, stormtroopers were pretty much at will to summarily execute anybody. Like the senior stormtrooper in charge would have been like, they've given us the information we need. They refuse to give us the information they need. They do not have the information that we need. And all three of those are a death sentence. Like we've gotten what we need from you, and now you are no more use. You won't give us what you want, and so you must be made an example of. And you can't help us, but you now we're looking for your nephew, and we don't want that information to get out. So at that point, any interaction with the Empire was pretty much a death sentence as it was. So it could, and really at that point in the Empire's development, it didn't even need to be an order. Like one stormtrooper could have just like, I'm sick of this, blam blam, and the other one's like, hey, great idea, blam blam blam.
Yeah, I still like how it showed how
I thought the Sand People killed them.
Exactly.
I should have taken that stance. I do have to like stick with my Imperial leaders. No, they weren't killed by stormtroopers. For those who were not aware, and I had to look this up.
I do like
Beru White Sun Lars was a human female from Tatooine. She, we don't know, as far as I can tell, we don't know really where she. Oh no, here she is. She wanted to set up a cafe or restaurant in Anchorhead. Oh man, she should have opened a bar with B. Arthur. That would have been great.
We were talking about Beru.
Yeah. She stopped at Watto's junk shop in Mos Espa to have her portable nav fixed, and there she met Shmi Skywalker, who fixed the device for cheap. And sometime later, Beru introduced Shmi to moisture farmer Clegg Lars, who freed and married Skywalker. So that's pretty cool. There's some interesting information there. She, like all Star Wars characters, there's pages and pages of her history that are not on screen. Interesting to know where these came from, but she's an interesting character for being such a small part of the story that we see.
And that's
clearly the warmth in Luke's upbringing, and I think something in that had to speak to her. Like, Owen is barking orders, and go out to pick up some, or whatever he's saying. I don't.
You can waste time with your friends after you get.
Thank you. Exactly. Waste time with your friends, and whereas Beru would have, you shouldn't be so hard on the boy.
That's one thing I appreciate. That's one thing I appreciate about that George did, was that all of those characters that you see, no matter how little screen time they get, like Owen and Beru are a good example. They get very low screen time, but I can guarantee you that he probably had reams of paper written with backstories about those characters.
Did he though? I'm not sure that all came from Lucas.
I think he had at least. I don't know about reams, but he had a backstory for them. I guarantee, because he had a backstory for the two criminals that Luke runs into in Mos Eisley.
Oh boy, we see a lot of them in the comics too. Like Dr. Evazan or whatever his name fills in huge blocks of storyline.
Yeah. So I mean, I guarantee he had backstory, at least in his mind, a backstory for those two characters.
I saw a meme once where like Dr. Evazan says, I have the death sentence in 12 systems. And Kenobi's just like, like that whole galaxy would kill me if they knew who I was. 12 systems, adorable.
Yeah.
We were talking about the stormtroopers executing Owen and Beru, and I still think my favorite version of that is still from the old fan film Troopers.
Why is that your
I don't know. It's just so hilarious where he's like, the fact that the troopers have the kind of, that kind of Boston accent or whatever, and the fact that they're having they pull it off like it's a domestic dispute.
Oh geez.
That's speaking of, we see Kenobi say only stormtroopers shoot so precisely, which I'm kind of interested, like how can you tell from a hole in the wall how precisely the shot was made? But it feeds into a theory I've always liked to share, and I'm going to share it here. I think that one of Luke's greatest powers is that nobody really wants to kill him. And we know that stormtroopers can shoot people. They shoot Leia 4 minutes into episode 4. Like, we know they can hit people. Kenobi says the only stormtroopers shoot surface. They know, canonically, we know that stormtroopers are good shots. We don't see it on screen. And I think that's because we are most commonly seeing stormtroopers shooting at Luke. And I think that's what it's the Force working in their minds. I don't really want to shoot this guy. Even Palpatine and Vader don't want to kill him. They want to be on their team. The only character who makes a solid effort to kill Luke Skywalker is Jabba the Hutt, who tells us your Jedi mind tricks won't work on me. I think there's something to that. I make an excellent point.
Well, I think you do, but there's another running theory that that all throughout the course of, especially episode 4, that the running theories that the stormtroopers had been given orders not to kill Luke and anybody he was with while they're there.
Oh, that makes more sense than mine.
Because if you look at the way that the stormtroopers are tasked in Empire Strikes Back, yeah, they're shooting at him, but most of what they do when he shows up on Cloud City is they're hurting him towards Vader.
Right.
Boba Fett is the only one
that
that makes a decent pot shot at him and tries to hit him deliberately.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, he's not, because he's already got his prize. He's got Han Solo, because that was what he was tasked with getting.
Sure.
So at this point, he's like, hey, random dude, I can disintegrate him now.
Well, now this happened after that movie was made, of course, but canonically at that point, Fett knows Luke Skywalker's name.
Right.
Yeah.
And he knows that he's of personal interest to Vader. I don't know if I'm sure you've read that Vader comic.
Yeah, I've got that comic book. Yeah. It was put up by Marvel back in like 2015.
Yep, one of the very first. I think it's one of the first trade paperback of the new Vader series, which unbelievable.
It's not in the new Vader series. It's actually in the new Star Wars series.
Oh, is it Star Wars? Okay, I got to interview Charles Soule, and I've just got stuck. I've got Vader stuck in my brain, like all the best parts of the comics. I just assume they're part of Vader.
So, but then I mean, even if you look at the what happens in Return of the Jedi, none of the stormtroopers ever actually take shots at Luke Skywalker.
Yeah,
like they're under orders. They're not there to kill him. They're there to direct him.
Well, once again, I have made a silly joke, and Garrett has replied with a well thought out analysis. So I like it.
I needed to get myself tested. I might actually have autism.
No, it's a superpower.
Don't tell that to Shane Black. We don't want him to be right.
I've had to tell one of my friends has an 11-year-old who is very, very given to correcting people on like any topic. I was like, hey, bro, I had to learn this when I was your age, but any sentence that begins with the word actually, you probably just don't need to say. It's just nobody wants to hear. As someone who corrected the grammar of my social circle more than once, I'm just here to tell you, nobody needs to hear actually.
I'm having flashbacks.
That's a great point. I like that. If I can circle back to Luke and the Imperial Academy, if Owen had been either a better moisture farmer or a worse uncle, because you know why he didn't want Luke to go to the academy. I don't think it was because he really needed help around the farm. I think it was because he knew that Luke would come across Vader's radar, literally come across his radar. Yeah. But imagine Luke as Vader's wingman. It's the end of the Rebel Alliance right there.
Yeah.
The two of them flying together. Now I make jokes about how Luke shouldn't be that good of a pilot because everybody talks about how he practiced on with the T-56. What's the
T-16 Skyhopper?
T-16, yeah.
T-16 Skyhopper. That's like saying I drove a moped when I was a kid, so I can fly an F-18. I don't think it's comparable, but it's
actually it is, because if you read because I used to
actually
no, let's hear it. I deserve the actually. I want it.
So when they were designing and this is canon obviously, but when they were designing the cockpit controls for the T-65, which is the X-Wing, they purposely designed it to be almost identical to the T-16 to make it easier for pilots to come in to learn how to fly it.
Well, there you go.
So they purposely designed the X-Wing to be almost identical to be easy to fly so that a novice could come in and learn and fly it.
It's the Volkswagen of the stars. I like it. That's a good explanation.
Yeah.
It's funny that reminds me. I always think it's interesting to look at like where people in Star Wars have the time to learn all these skills. I know people who spent 20 years learning to be a fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
Luke Skywalker is a fighter pilot, but he's also an advanced mechanical engineer who built a lightsaber. Like there's so many people who have like skills that would take a lifetime to develop, but they have multiples of them. Anybody can hop in and fly a starfighter, but we see the heroes of the story, so we see the ones who are mythically good at this stuff. But I always think that's cool to think.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to see, and now I really want to see. There's a custom figure maker I know. I'd like to see Luke as an Imperial officer.
That would be pretty dope. Because
I can you just a head switch at this point? Just grab a couple Black Series.
I mean, just like something to consider is like if he did become Vader's right hand, just like you're talking about, like how bad would it be for Owen and Beru that after all these years of him being part of the Imperial Academy, doing well as a pilot, getting his name recognized, and then being reunited with his father after all these years, he comes back not just as Vader's right hand, but as like their destruction.
Or
if they lied to him the entire
in this alternate universe, they raised him, and when it was time for him to go, they let him go. He could come back and thank them and reward them. They could go live the high life on Coruscant as the people who raised the number 2 fighter in the Imperial Navy.
Yeah,
I think it's much more likely he'd kill them. But
yeah.
I do think that might be the good in Luke. Like I think if anything, we've learned that nothing can put out the light in Luke's spirit. I think even at that point, he would still find a way to justify it to the Empire. Like, yeah, they lied to me, but it was for the greater good because look where I am now. Imagine if they hadn't let me go. I might have stayed an extra season and ended up in the Rebel Alliance or something. No? All right. He'd probably kill him. I'll give you that. No. I do think it's interesting when the stormtroopers execute Owen and Beru, why they bother to cover it up. Like, who cares? You're the Empire. You show up. You kill people. Why you gotta dress it up?
Well, no, they don't cover up the death of Owen Beru. They cover up the death of the Jawas.
Oh, I guess I thought. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the. But I mean, your point about them being crack shots is still apt for anything else. But yeah, they cover up the death of the Jawas to make it look like it's the Sand People, because then it doesn't track anything back to them offing Owen and Beru.
There's an old video from a late night TV show showing a joke of Walter Matthau auditioning for Kenobi, and he delivers the line, "Sand people only always travel single file." It's great stuff. Well, I think this was an interesting topic when you told me this is what we're going to be discussing. Like Mark, I was not sure how we'd fill a half hour, but I think, as you say, Lucas gives us characters that have depth. And he gives us a story that's so intricately woven. We could pluck apart what if this, what if that, to any amount of time. But Owen and Beru's upbringing fostered the light that was in Luke, and I'd like to think you would like to imagine that they gave him a place for that light to grow. I mean, we see in the comic books, we see Luke as a youth playing with toys and whatnot, and if he hadn't had that upbringing, he might not have ended up to be the warrior, the hero that we know. Although I think if given the option, he might have wanted to grow up as a prince of Alderaan too. Who knows? But he didn't get that option.
Now that's a what if I'd like to read.
Yeah, geez, thanks a lot.
The parents
oh no, we only wanted a daughter.
Well, join us next week as we will be discussing the most important characters in Star Wars. The Jawas who sold R2-D2. We'll be going into a deep dive. No.
That's great. You got to read a certain point of view. There's a great story about the Jawa that found him.
Actually, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Well, next week we're going to be having a special guest host, not host, but special guest, a gentleman by the name of Ken Bishop will be joining us, and we will be discussing with that gentleman what makes a good Star Wars story. We'll also be discussing some of the new stuff that came out of D23. Spoiler alert, we'll of course be talking about what I'm calling now Goonies in Space. If you know, you know.
Yep, I know. I know.
Is Ken Bishop
We'll be
affiliated
discussing
with any
that
sort of
along with.
Is Ken Bishop affiliated
What's
with any
that?
sort of a show, a media property? Where is he from?
Not that I know.
Okay.
He was, not that I know of. I'm sure we'll find out.
Great.
So as we always do, Garrett, why don't you? Actually, Brian, why don't you start out?
All right,
since you're gone. Yes,
folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can see me and my friends posting on the Sith Library and Archives on Facebook. It's a well-curated and lovingly tended collection of Sith art, culture, and discussion. Come on by and see us. Darth Korosis is who I post as. It's the only thing I ever wrote in 8th grade that I still like.
Awesome.
Garrett, what about you? Where can people find you at?
Well, you guys can find me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my show The Right Way. It's a show on YouTube where we discuss book recommendations, author interviews, and of course, creative writing tips. I'm in the process of planning season 7. I've done 6 out of my 9 regular monthly interviews. They're already recorded and ready to go and be edited. And I've got a great selection of guest hosts coming in to help with top 10 book recommendations, as well as my Creator's Corner writing tips. But I also talk about my books, The Archives of Isink Ran, which is a currently 5-book series, medieval fantasy. There's dragons, elves, magic, and vampires that don't sparkle.
All right. As for us right here, of course, you can contact us through our email, warthestars1@gmail.com. That is also our handle on X. You can find us on Instagram at war_of_the_stars1. That's a lot of underscores. And of course on YouTube at SWChild, where you can check us out on YouTube. Also, you can check out episodes of Star Wars Through the Eyes of a Child with me and my daughter watching the Clone Wars series. If you want to support the show, you can go to kofi.com/War of the Stars, or you can go to our Spreadshirt shop and check us out there at spreadshirt.com/shop/war-of-the-stars-.
That's a lot of dashing.
Very dashing.
If we had
I made a joke.
Spreadshirt, would that make us a haberdashery?
Yeah, it might.
Brian's God, they did that.
I tried to make a joke last week about Dash and Dash Rendar. I don't know if it went down well, but anyway, of course, we are a proud member of Geek News Now. Go to Geek News Now on YouTube and Spotify. If you are on YouTube, make sure you look for Geek News Now official. When you're looking for it on Spotify, just type in Geek News Now, and you'll find not only our show but all the other shows that are on part of the Geek News Now network. Is that about it? Did I miss anything?
Yeah, that's about it.
All right. As always, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next week, may the Force be with you.
Serenity now.
Oh. To infinity and beyond.